Welcome to a brand new video here at Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Tinberg, and today I'm going to be breaking down the latest news that came out late last week, which was the fact of Kathleen Kennedy stepping down as the lead executive and president of Lucasfilm and handing it over to Dave Filoni and Lin-Win Brennan. My name is Patrick. Welcome back, everyone, to Max Talks Movies. If you guys are new, guys, please hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers as quickly as possible. Please, guys, help me out by hitting that subscribe button, ringing that bell. I do movie reviews, TV show reviews, out-of-theater reactions, movie franchise rankings, box office breakdown shows, award show videos. I do it all. Subscribe, ring those bells. I do videos every single day. Comment down below. What are your thoughts on the state, honestly, of Star Wars? Are you excited for the future of the company? Are you not? Tell me, where does give me a letter grade for Kathleen Kennedy's over 10-year run at the studio in the comments section down below. And also, guys, please hit that thumbs up button. So, Star Wars, if you guys are new to my channel, Star Wars is by far and away the most important and my favorite franchise of all time. Like, it's not even close. Star Wars means a lot to me, if you know me personally. So I have not felt like it's been a millennium since I've made a Star Wars video. I probably was like Skeleton Crew, if I'm not mistaken, which is over a year ago, was the last time I made a Star Wars video. And it's been since I've started the YouTube channel in 2020. I've broken down episodes of Mando and Grogu and Acolyte and Andor and all these other shows. Bad Batch. Um, I have never been, Andor was obviously fantastic and I love talking Andor, but I haven't really felt for me this momentum for Star Wars in probably honestly a decade. Maybe the 2019, 2020 time where like Mando first two seasons really built up a lot of goodwill with people, but that was kind of killed off post season two of Mando. So I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I didn't want to like rush out a video. I wanted to do some research, make sure I have all the right opinions here, and have a full opinion to tell you guys my thoughts on Kathleen Kennedy stepping down. I'm not going to come out in here and say Kathleen Kennedy did an all-time amazing job as the president and leader of Lucasfilm. But am I going to say that she tarnished the Star Wars brand and she killed Star Wars? No. Um, I think there's a lot of history and background that needs to be said on how important Kathleen Kennedy really was to the Star Wars brand over the last 12 years. I'm going to break down the highs and the lows of Kennedy's tenure. And then I'll break down my thoughts on the Brennan Filoni element, and my thoughts on really the future of Star Wars. So I was born, I just want to give everyone out there. I was born in 2002. So when I was born, the first two prequels came out. I was 3 years old when Revenge of the Sith came out. So I don't again didn't see in the theater. So the first live action Star Wars movie that I saw in theaters was The Force Awakens in 2015 when I was 13 years old. And it's so weird that my generation would even adore Star Wars because we grew up kind of very, of course, late from the original trilogy and really towards the end of the prequel trilogy, at least people around my age. And you would think that why would I become such a big Star Wars fan? Because really the brand was dead for the majority of my childhood, like dead. The only thing that was keeping the franchise going was Dave Filoni's Clone Wars on Cartoon Network. You had the original movie, which I saw in theaters, remember seeing when I was like 6 years old. And then of course the show that went on to Cartoon Network, and then Rebels. Filoni was really keeping the Star Wars brand relevant when it became really toxic for George Lucas, who made his prequel trilogy, and it was so heavily panned in those late 90s, early 2000s time. And he was so panned that he gave up Star Wars to Disney. He had ideas to make episodes 7, 8, and 9. He had other ideas. And he was still an integral part of creating Clone Wars as well as Dave Filoni. He was in on those meetings as well. But it was so heavily panned, and the brand had just gone away for so long in the mainstream that he moved it to Bob Iger and Disney. And the only person he would let really control Lucasfilm was Kathleen Kennedy. And for a lot of people out there, she is still going to go down and is going to go down, excuse me, as one of the most influential and I think one of the best producers of all time. She's produced some of probably your favorite movies of all time. She's a obviously a contributing partner with her husband Frank Marshall, but also Steven Spielberg as well. But she's been a part of some of the greatest productions of all time, and she took over Lucasfilm and Star Wars at a time. As I said, the brand was pretty much dead until Disney took over and Kathleen Kennedy took over. Um, I say for the good things. Now, what people forget with Kathleen Kennedy is everyone blames her for all of the bad shows or movies and really don't give her any credit when the movies or shows are actually good. People think she's only involved when the shows are terrible and she's not involved when these movies are actually pretty good. That just is, of course, not the case. Um, Again, I think the live action film stuff got off to such a great start. I lived in Los Angeles at the time of course, this new trilogy, but especially The Force Awakens. I had such a special experience at El Capitan Theater, which is the Disney big theater in LA where they show all of their movies, and seeing Morbilia. It was a sold out theater. People were going crazy. There was a lightsaber like light show. As someone who, again, was a massive Star Wars fan, I had never experienced anything like that with Star Wars until that time. It was a kind of a niche brand for me as a kid because there weren't any Star Wars movies coming out. I was just watching an animated show, which again was also very niche. And Force Awakens gave, I think, regular, casuals, but also diehard Star Wars fans a lot of hope with that first movie. And then Rogue One came out, and I think everyone, it's a very unanimously beloved movie. And then I think Star Wars really did shift in 2017 with The Last Jedi, and it completely divided the fandom and brought back the really toxic fans that were there for my entire life. Um, and it was a risky movie. I don't hate The Last Jedi. I don't love The Last Jedi. I think it's an okay movie. I don't think it's as offensive to Star Wars as I think a lot of people do, but I also don't think it's like the Citizen Kane of Star Wars either. Um, and then it felt like the brand was kind of dead because Rise of Skywalker was also not really well received. I really do not like the Rise of Skywalker. It's easily my least favorite of the trilogy. Solo came out and it underwhelmed. And again, Force Awakens, Rogue One, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, billion-dollar movies. From a money perspective, that was far from the problem. Again, Solo obviously was not close to $1 billion, and it kind of made Star Wars kind of halt things on so let's do a bunch of spin-off movies. Then 2019 happens, Disney Plus happens, and we get The Mandalorian. And that, as I said, really rejuvenated the franchise for the first time since The Force Awakens. Everyone was like, wow, this is so different from what they usually do. It's a bounty hunter show. Yes, there's implications on the broader scheme because it takes place after the events of Return of the Jedi, but it was really exciting people. And then Mandalorian season two, I also thought really knocked it out of the park. The Luke Skywalker cameo was like a global phenomenon at that point. And everyone's like, all right, Disney Plus, Star Wars, it's going very well. But then we hit a lot of rocky shows. If you're talking about Book of Boba Fett, which really underwhelmed, you had shows like The Acolyte, which were for me like total disasters. You had Obi-Wan, which might be for me the most disappointing TV show I have ever seen because he is my favorite Star Wars character of all time, and I have never been more pumped for a show in my life than when I was getting ready to watch the premiere of Obi-Wan Kenobi. That did not work out. And it led to, again, just middling returns. I think the biggest problem for Kathleen Kennedy's tenure is that with Mandalorian and Grogu coming out this year, that means there's not been a Star Wars movie in theaters in 7 years. That is such a long gap for one of the most famous IPs in the world. Again, Galaxy's Edge, I think, is a huge positive on Kathleen Kennedy's tenure. Getting people to the theme park, getting to know the characters like that for kids, I think is really important. But I think holding off movies for that long, being really scared off by Rise of Skywalker, and because Solo made him rethink, should we do original movies or spin-off movies? We don't even know yet. And then Rise of Skywalker was like that's kind of the end, I guess, of the Skywalker trilogy. So we can't really do an episode 10 anytime soon. So they kind of felt lost in the theatrical way and just kept making all these Disney Plus shows. And a lot of them were not very good. Again, Andor, fantastic show. I really enjoyed Skeleton Crew. Bad Batch, I think, is very good. I think the first two seasons of Mandalorian are great, but the third season was really bad, in my opinion. Ahsoka, also a very divisive show. I like that show, but I don't love Ahsoka. But I don't think it's as bad as people think Ahsoka is. So it's a very mixed bag. Now, I do think it was time for Kathleen Kennedy to step down. I think Star Wars did need just fresh, new eyes running the company. So that transitions us into Dave Filoni, who takes over as the chief creative officer for Lucasfilm. We have Lin-Wyn Brennan, who's serving as the co-president with Filoni. So this is very similar to what DC did when they hired James Gunn to be the head of creative for DC, and then you had Peter Safran running really the business side of DC. That's what this really is. Filoni handles all the creative stuff for Star Wars, while Brennan handles all the business stuff for Lucasfilm, which again also includes Indiana Jones. And it'll be interesting if they ever go back to Indiana Jones after Dial of Destiny. I think many people don't realize Indiana Jones is a Lucasfilm property. But we'll see if they ever go back to that. But everyone has now, Dave Filoni, I would say 5 years ago, was seen as the savior of Star Wars. He seemed like the most trusted guy that the entire fan base was rooting behind. Now, also, yes, Dave Filoni's Star Wars projects do mean a lot to me because that was my Star Wars as a kid. I absolutely love the Clone Wars. I've watched it through 3 or 4 times. I've seen Rebels 3 or 4 times all the way through. That was the Star Wars that I really grew up with having on a consistent basis because there weren't movies from the point I was 3 until I was 13. So he seemed like he was obviously someone who was really trained under George Lucas. He felt like the perfect person, excuse me, to pass the baton off to for the franchise. But there've been obviously reports on Filoni being a little bit too involved on particular projects, like The Acolyte, causing that not to go well. There's always been reports that Dave Filoni was not a fan of Andor. He doesn't really feel like that's Star Wars. Again, these are all reports. And do I think like I am like overly excited with Dave Filoni taking over as the creative? I'm not like outrageously excited, like pumping my fist, like, oh my God, this is such a win for Star Wars. It's saved. But I do think Dave Filoni understands, I think, the traditional Star Wars feel. Now, does that mean that he's going to make every project great? No, because again, he really was the lead in charge for Mando season 3. That really didn't go well. Ahsoka, very divisive show. And again, I still like his animated projects. He is still directing, writing Ahsoka season 2, and he's still supposed to be directing that big Mando Ahsoka universe kind of crossover movie at some point. He's still involved with The Mandalorian moving forward. It's I do trust Dave Filoni more than most people. I don't think this is like a home run hire, but I think it's kind of the only hire they could have made in the situation. Everyone's like, oh my God, Jon Favreau, he seems like the lot. Jon Favreau is a filmmaker. He's not someone who wants to be running a studio and picking out all these projects for a particular studio. So Filoni still co-wrote The Mandalorian Grogu with with Favreau. So he's still a part of that. I do trust Dave Filoni. I'm going to say this right now. I do believe the future of Star Wars needs to be theatrical. They have relied so heavily on Disney Plus, and it's hurt the brand because it's made the brand not must see because it's on the small screen. Star Wars was always made for the big screen. And I can't believe that the last time I saw a Star Wars movie, I was a senior in high school. And here I am, a year and a half removed from college. And it will be exactly 2 years removed from graduating from college that I'm seeing the first Star Wars movie since I was a senior in high school. That is a really scary thing. And I think Star Wars and Lucasfilm know that that can't be the future. Now, again, we already know there are 2 movies done already, which is Mandalorian Grogu, which is coming out in May. And then you also have Starfighter coming out in 2027. That's going to be starring Ryan Gosling, directed by Sean Levy. Those two things are in the can. We've heard rumors of so many things upcoming, which is a Taika Waititi movie, a James Mangold movie, even a Soderbergh, Adam Driver, Kylo Ren movie, a possible Ray movie. We have the Simon Kinberg trilogy, which seems like the most likely thing to move forward is Kinberg making a new trilogy, episodes maybe 10 through 12, and continuing on. But this franchise needs to be looking at theatrical releases. If not every year, every other year at the minimum, because it's such an important brand for movies. As I said, episodes 7, 8, and 9 in Rogue One are billion-dollar movies. Force Awakens, one of the highest grossing movies of all time. And without how much people out there want to crap on Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, those are billion-dollar movies. But from a creative perspective, for me, what I want the most is a set plan. If there's a trilogy, let's really take the time, work through it, know where point A is, know where point Z is, and get there. Because that was the biggest problem from a creative perspective of the new sequel trilogy, episodes 7 through 9, which was JJ came in, did his movie, didn't come back for 8. They told Rian Johnson, make whatever movie you want. And he basically made a completely different movie that didn't really feel that much of a continuation of Force Awakens, kind of crapped on a lot of the things that happened in Force Awakens and made his own path. And then when Rian Johnson's movie got so divisive, obviously he wasn't going to come back. Colin Trevorrow had an opportunity. He didn't come back he didn't want to do episode 9 after a lot of contract disputes. And then JJ just comes back to make his episode 9. And then he started derailing things that happened in Last Jedi. And it was just a mess of a trilogy. They never had a set plan on where they left things off in Force Awakens. Rian Johnson did his own thing. And then JJ Abrams also did his own thing for episode 9. If they're going to make movies or trilogies, they need to have set plans on how to get there. I'm not saying they need to have the same filmmaker directing every trilogy, but from a story perspective, they need to know the direction of the franchise. And Filoni has a big part of that because if we're doing a Mandalorian movie now coming out this year, and Ahsoka season 2, and then we're gonna have a big culminating universe movie, hopefully there is a plan. And that's all I want. I think Star Wars has had a huge problem of announcing so many projects, and a lot of them never come to fruition. Like that Patty Jenkins movie never happened. Lord and Miller directing Solo didn't end up happening. I can name a billion projects that Star Wars has announced over the last decade that have not happened. It's a running joke if you're a Star Wars fan, where you just don't believe a project is real until you see a first trailer. And that is sad that you don't have that trust with the studio when they're making these grand, exciting announcements that fans can't be excited because they still don't believe those projects are real. I think that's another thing Dave Filoni and Brennan need to do from like a marketing perspective, but also just a creative perspective, which is if you're going to announce projects, you need to build up trust with the fandom again. The things that you are announcing are going to happen. Now, again, Marvel announces stuff that doesn't happen. But the amount of things Star Wars announced that doesn't happen has to stop. Again, not when you make these grand 10-year announcements, obviously people can't expect everything to come out at that time and those projects to always come through. Things happen. It's Hollywood. It's a business. I do think though the like it's like a lot more projects that are announced don't happen than do happen. That needs to change. So again, am I excited for Mandalorian Grogu? I, for some reason, don't feel that excited. I don't feel many people are excited. Mando season 3 was bad. It was really bad. But again, Jon Favreau really wasn't completely focused on that project, what the reports were. So the fact that he's directing it, co-writing it with Filoni, I have faith he can make a really good movie. Does the trailer excite me? Not a lot. I think it's a fine trailer. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what the box office is going to be like for Mando and Grogu. And then you have Starfighter, which is a huge risk, quote unquote, because it's really the first original Star Wars movie that as of now has no connections to the Skywalker saga. where there's no Skywalkers as of now. You have a lot of new cast: Ryan Gosling, Amy Adams, Mia Goth, Matt Smith. Really strong ensemble with Sean Levy, who is obviously on a roll from a producer, writer, director perspective, especially with Disney, with Free Guy and Deadpool and Wolverine, and obviously with Netflix for Stranger Things. So I think Starfighter is the most exciting project for me for Star Wars. Am I going to be there for Mandalorian Grogu Day One? I will probably see it 2 times in theaters. I love Star Wars. I miss seeing it on the big screen. But it is a new era for Star Wars. And I think Kathleen Kennedy, I would kind of grade her as a B as the lead executive for the company. I don't think she did an unbelievable job, but I also think some people were overly harsh on her tenure. I think she did a lot of good things for Star Wars, while also, I think, doing some misses happen as well. You can't go perfect as an executive. But I am still hopeful that Star Wars can really turn things around. It's one of the most important brands Hollywood has, and it just has not been at the forefront in a very, very long time. So it's back theatrically over the next 2 years. That's exciting that we have 2 guaranteed Star Wars movies hitting theaters in the next 24 months. That's exciting. Can they get momentum back? That will be interesting. So that is my thoughts, guys, on Star Wars, honestly, at this point. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Like this video. Thank you guys so much for letting me get a lot of things off my chest. This is my favorite franchise. I had a lot of thoughts. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you guys in another video very soon.